Let me tell you about the year a teacher decided to destroy me and how she ended up destroying herself instead. Junior year, second semester. I was a solid student, decent grades, swim team, school newspaper. Teachers liked me. I had never once had a teacher who genuinely couldn't stand me. Then I walked into classical literature and I met Miss Carter. She hated me from day one. I still don't know why. But what I do know is she had a plan, and for a while it was working. The class was 50% essays. Writing was literally my thing. I worked on the school paper. I figured I'd cruise through with at least a B. First paper back, D. I stared at that grade like it was written in another language. My lowest grade ever in any class had been a C, and that was chemistry. I flipped through the pages looking for feedback. 2 words in red ink, uninspired assessment. That's it. I asked her after class what I did wrong. She told me to come back during study hall. I thought she'd show me examples, model essays, something useful. Instead, she sat me down and spent a full hour telling me I was an idiot. No examples, no guidance, just slow, deliberate humiliation. I walked out and cried in the hallway. My best friend Maya found me, the girl who would eventually become our class valedictorian. When I explained what happened, she didn't say I'm sorry. She said, "We're fixing this." We spent hours on my next paper. Maya treated it like a science experiment. We outlined, drafted, revised again. I turned it in, feeling genuinely confident. Another Maya took my paper to her apt English teacher, Mr. Daniels, told him she was entering a writing competition and wanted feedback. Didn't mention my name or Miss Carter. He loved it. Said it was strong, analytical, exactly what you want from a serious student. Then Maya showed him my first paper, the original one that got the D. He said that one was even better. Maya came back to me that night and said 4 words, "She's doing this on purpose." I didn't want to believe it. So I gave Miss Carter one last chance. 3 times before my next paper was due, I sat in her office during study hall. I let her mark up my drafts in red pen. I revised based on every single comment she made. By the time I submitted that 3rd paper, I had 3 red ink-covered drafts sitting in my folder. She gave me a D+, smirked, said, "Congratulations on your improvement." I walked out with ice in my veins. The game was over. Now it was my turn. I went straight to my newspaper advisor, Mr. Holloway, handed him my paper, asked for feedback. He said it was excellent, said he'd give it a solid A. 2 outside teachers, both said A, both independently. Then Maya reminded me of something. The football and basketball guys got moved to easier classes all the time to protect their eligibility. And I was on the swim team. If I kept pulling a D, I'd lose my eligibility to compete. That was my angle. I sat down with my swim coach and the athletics director, an old friend of my dad's. Told them I was in danger of losing eligibility over one class. I'd asked for help repeatedly. Nothing was changing. They asked to see the papers. I watched 2 grown men read my essays with genuinely confused expressions, like they were waiting for the punchline, because they couldn't figure out how any of this was worth a D. The student VP got pulled in. He asked if I'd ever gone to my actual teacher for help. I smiled, pulled out the 3 red ink-covered drafts. The VP stared at those pages, then picked up the phone. Mr. Daniels and Mr. Holloway were each asked to grade all 3 papers independently. Every single one came back A- or better. My dad was called in. He showed up angrier than I had ever seen him. He demanded I be moved immediately, and Miss Carter placed under formal review. Said it plainly, she wasn't grading on merit. She was grading on personal bias. 6 adults ended up in that VP's office shouting. I sat outside hearing all of it through the door. The next morning, a formal meeting. Me, my dad, the VP, the athletics director, and Miss Carter. She walked in thinking she was about to win. Sweet smile, total confidence. The VP explained the situation. She immediately said I should be moved to the non-honors track, that I had no business being in her class and would probably need a tutor just to survive basic English. My dad turned a shade of red I've never seen on a human face. The VP asked calmly whether Miss Carter had ever offered me help. She said, without blinking, that I had never once asked for any. He reached into his folder and placed the 3 red ink-covered drafts on the table in front of her. The color drained from her face. She called me a liar, said those notes weren't hers. The room exploded. I was sent to wait outside. 5 minutes before first bell, it went quiet. I was called back in. Miss Carter walked past me on her way out. If looks could kill, they'd have needed a chalk outline right there in that hallway. I was moved to the English department head's class, Miss Ellison. Mid-60s, decades of experience, ran her room like a quiet general. After honors English, her class was easy. I could have coasted. But I refused to let Miss Carter be right about me. I worked harder in that class than anything else that semester. Finished assignments so fast that Miss Ellison had me tutoring a struggling student, helped her go from a C- to a B+. I finished with 104%. End of the year, Miss Ellison called me in, said she was recommending me back to honors English for senior year. I must have looked terrified because she immediately said, Miss Carter won't be your teacher. Miss Carter won't be anyone's teacher. Late 20s. One of the highest paying districts in the state. You don't leave a job like that unless you have no choice. Then she told me something I hadn't known. I had been placed in her class on purpose. The administration needed someone they trusted completely to find out whether Miss Carter's version of events was true, whether I really was, as she claimed, a lying student with no writing ability. Miss Ellison said it took her about 2 weeks to have her answer. I broke down right there in her office, because somewhere under all of it, part of me had actually started to believe Miss Carter. That's what someone with power over you can do when they use it without mercy. Miss Ellison pulled me in and held on until I stopped shaking. I built a career almost entirely on writing. But I'll be honest, even now, over a decade later, I still obsess over every word I put on a page. I still hear that voice sometimes. Miss Carter got 1 more semester in that classroom after I left, and I genuinely hope it was her last. Because some people should never have that kind of power over anyone.